Erev Shabbos Kodesh, the 26th day of Chodesh Shvat. It is Erev Shabbos Parsha Shkolim. So we are heading into an exciting time of the year. And we are holding in the bottom of Kuf Hey Amud Aleph, going on to our Amud for today, which is Kuf Hey Amud Beis. The Gemara is going to further challenge the din of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman had told us yesterday that the halacha is that if a person had not said Kiddush at night, he should say Kiddush, the full, both brachas during the daytime. And Ravina had challenged him from one brisa, and now he's going to challenge him from another brisa. And this is at the bottom of Kuf Hey Aleph, second to last word on the line, Esive. Ravina says back to Rav Nachman, hold on a second. Kvoid Yom u'kvoid Laila. If you have to choose, you have to make a choice between honoring the day of Shabbos and honoring the night of Shabbos. Kvoid Yom Kodim. You honor the day of Shabbos more. What does it mean to honor the day of Shabbos? So the honoring of the day of Shabbos, Rashi says, if you have lots of wine or excess delicious food, you leave that over for the daytime. It is more important to honor the day of Shabbos than to honor the night of Shabbos. However, if you only have one cup of wine, you say on it Kiddush Hayom. Kiddush for the Kiddush Hayom, meaning for the day of Shabbos, not during the day of Shabbos, before the day of Shabbos, meaning at night. Because making Kiddush properly on Friday night takes precedence over the mitzvah of Kovod Shabbos. V'im Isa, and if it is correct, as you say, Rav Nachman, that if you didn't make Kiddush on Friday night, you can say it on Shabbos morning, you should leave that cup of wine, that singular cup of wine that you have, and be able to fulfill both mitzvahs with it. You'd be able to fulfill Kiddush Hayom, and you'd be able to fulfill Kovod Hayom. Both of those would be applicable. Both of them would be possible if you would just leave it over to the next day. Must be, says Ravina. We are 3 lines down on Kuf Hey Amud Beis. It must be, says Ravina, that your din Rav Nachman is incorrect, because if you're telling me that you can make Kiddush in the daytime to make up for the nighttime, so then go ahead and do that, and then you would be able to achieve both. Amarle, says Rav Nachman back to Ravina, no, not so fast. Why? Because chaviva mitzvah b'shata. Because a mitzvah is much more beloved. It's much more precious, much more dear if it is done in the right time. Says the Gemara, hold on a second, Ravina challenges back to Rav Nachman. You're telling me that we have a principle, chaviva mitzvah b'shata, that we always want to do the mitzvah at the right time, and therefore, since you have the opportunity to make Kiddush Hayom, meaning at night, you can make Kiddush properly on your one cup of wine, so then that should take precedence rather than chapping both of these mitzvahs the next day, and it's only b'diavad if you didn't. Then you would be able to make the full Friday night Kiddush on Shabbos morning because of Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shata. Hold on, do we really hold of Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shata? I'm reading Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shata, and do we really say that a mitzvah is dear, is more beloved in its right time? We have a brisa that we have learned already that contradicts it. V'hatanya, didn't we already learn the brisa? A person comes home on Motzei Shabbos, mevarech al hayayin, he's going to make a bracha on wine, meaning bari pregafen, va'al ha'ma'or, and then on the ma'or, and then on bari ma'or ha'ish, va'al ha'b'samim, and bari min ha'b'samim. That's what he's going to be doing. And then he's going to say, he's going to make the bracha of Havdalah on that cup. And if he only has one cup, he leaves it until after the meal. Meaning, he's not going to be making Havdalah on that cup immediately. And he's going to chap all of the brachas of Dala and Birkas Hamazon. He's going to put it all into that one cup. We're not going to say Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shata. We're not going to say that the mitzvah is more beloved in its right time. Meaning, you should make Havdalah. That's the mitzvah that you have to do right now. And I'm not going to have a cup for Havdalah. Okay, so you want to have a cup for Havdalah. But what you've just done now is you've proven, says Ravina, what we've proven from this brisa is that Chavim Mitzvah B'Shata is not necessarily correct. Rashi points out, because he's not making Havdalah before his meal. Which is the right time to make Havdalah. Says Rav Nachman back to Ravina. Amarle says to him, I'm not so smart. And I'm not Navi. But I'm also not saying this as my own din. This is not my chiddush. Ella gamarna v'sadarna ana. I am coming to you not with a chiddush. Yeah, I'm coming as a person that has learnt and has been mesader all of the limud. V'chein marme beis midrash gvasi, and they pass in the beis medrash like me. Meaning, I'm not giving you my chiddush. I'm explaining what I have learned from my rebbeim. Don't come and attack me. I'll explain to you. This is the Masara, and they passing like me in the beis medrash. Ravina, don't come and jump at me. They're passing like me. He says, Sha'ani lan bein iyula yoma la afuka yoma. There is a big difference between the day coming in and the day going out. When you are talking about Shabbos coming in, iyula yoma kol kamen de mekadmin le adif, as soon as you can be mekadesh Shabbos coming in, that would be preferable. Which means that even if you only have 1 cup of wine, in order to be able to be mechabev Shabbos when it comes in, you are going to make kiddush al hakos immediately, and that's how we display our love for Shabbos. But when the day is going out, we try to delay the exit of Shabbos as much as possible, so that it doesn't look like it's a burden for us. Meaning, says Rav Nachman to Ravina, you think that Kiddush and Havdalah are mitzvahs. They are, but they're not. What is the mitzvah of Kiddush and what is the mitzvah of Havdalah? Is to be upgrading Shabbos, to make Shabbos special. So how do you make Shabbos special? You make Shabbos special by making Kiddush as early as possible and making Havdalah as late as possible. And if you only have 1 cup of wine, so while it's true that the mitzvah of Havdalah starts now, but the mitzvah of being Mechavev Shabbos is still to delay it. So we're going to delay it as much as possible. Now, there's a big debate amongst the Rishonim and Achronim whether we are talking about somebody that started the meal before the end of Shabbos or is starting the meal now after Shabbos, and we'll talk about that when we get to this next detail. But what Rav Nachman is effectively saying to Ravina is that we are going to contextualize Havdalah and Kiddush within the broader picture of what exactly Shabbos is about. Havdalah and Kiddush are not independent of the general idea of what we're being mechaviv, which is Shabbos, which I suppose is an important kavanah to have when you're making Kiddush, you're making Havdalah, that what you're doing is honoring Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Shma mina miha masnisin tamne. From this brisa and from this discussion that we've learned, Shma mina tamni, we are learning 8 different halachas. 8 different halachas here. What are the 8 halachas that we can derive from this brisa? First, Shma mina hamavdil b'tfilah tzarich she'havdalah hakas. The first thing is somebody that made Havdalah during davening, meaning they said Atachan Antanu, they still have to make Havdalah hakas when they get home. Meaning, and the inference is because one who enters his house is going to make Havdalah hakas. Where was he? He was at shul. He was making, which means that he davened. He comes home, now he needs to make Havdalah hakas. Shma mina, and you learn from this bracha to unakais, that the bracha Birkas Hamazon requires you to make Birkas Hamazon al hakos, and we have to get to why we don't do that commonly today. Okay, Ushmamina kosher bracha tzarich shir. Third halacha, that a kosher bracha has a minimum amount. It needs to have a shir. It needs to have a revius, because otherwise you'd be able to use half of it for Birkas Hamazon and half of it for Havdalah. And since you cannot do that, if you only have 1 cup, you need to use that cup for it has to have a shir. Ushmamina, and furthermore, what we learn is that a person that makes the bracha of Havdalah, meaning after you say Hamad, you have to take a sip of the cup. Why? Because if you didn't have to take a sip of the cup, then you'd be able to leave over that full cup for the end of Birkas Hamazon. Ushmamina, and you learn from this that if you take a sip of it, now it is pogum, meaning now it's defective. And since it's defective, you will not be able to use it for Birkas Hamazon at the end of benching as well. And we'll figure out with Rav Ashi on the next Amud exactly what that din is. So hold on to that for a moment. Tam Mavdil, and what we hear from this, Tam Mavdil, that even a person that had tasted some food, that's eaten something, still has to make Havdalah ala kos, meaning you still, even though you should not, ideally you should make Havdalah and then bench. In this case, you haven't made Havdalah yet, but it is permissible to make Havdalah after benching in order to be able to bench and to say Havdalah ala kos, and we'll see that there is a machlokas about that a little bit later. Turning on to Kuf Vav Amud Aleph, Ushmami Na Omer Beis Kedushas al Kos Echad, and we hear from this that it is permissible to say two brachas on one cup, to make Havdalah and Birkas Hamazon on one cup, and we had learned that already before, that in general, we don't do mitzvahs chavilas. We don't bundle up the mitzvahs unless you don't have an option. So this would be the case where you don't have an option. Ushmamina, and we hear from this Beis Shammai that this is the price of the opinion of Beis Shammai, because he's saying first you have to say ma'ar and then besamim, not besamim then ma'ar. First you say bari maraish, and then you say bari minimum besamim, which is not how we pass. And that's the shit of Beis Shammai va'aliba de Rabbi Yehuda, and it's the Beis Shammai according to Rabbi Yehuda. We saw that the Mishnah in Brachos, there's machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, what the machlokas was about. But this is the opinion of Beis Shammai. Rav Ashi then says, we'll just finish the next 3 lines here. Rav Ashi says, Tamai pegamai. What do you mean that the tasting it is going to make the cup defective? The kosel bracha tzarich shir, and the kosel bracha requires a minimum amount. She says chadim milsei, that's only one din. That's only one din, meaning because if you take a sip of it, now you have less than a shear. So obviously you can't make another bracha on it because now you have less than a shear. Says the Gemara v'haichi kama. No, it must be saying like this. My time ta'amai pegamai. What is the reason that the tam is poigemet, that tasting it is going to make it defective? Mishum de kosher bracha tzarich shir. It's because the kosher bracha requires a shear. So he collapsed those 2 reasons into one. Says Rashi here, aval I have a beit feimin kashir. If there would be more than a shear, tamai loy pegamai, then tasting it would not be poigemet. And that's an important question on Halacha Ma'aseh, which we will get a chance to talk about on Shabbos and thereafter. Hoping that everybody is doing well and looking forward to seeing everybody on Shabbos or on Maseches Shabbos. For those that will be joining us online, then have a beautiful day and a beautiful Erev Shabbos, beautiful Shabbos Kodesh. We'll see you later.